Hello everyone and welcome back. So the brand new comic for Fenrir, Operation Dread Factor, and specifically Redhammer is finally out. And it's a really interesting comic which shows Redhammer on a mission. It shows a lot of interactions between these operators, specifically Kaze and Fenrir. Of course, Kaze doesn't trust Fenrir. But one of the biggest things, just like at the end of the Commanding Force comic which set up Fenrir as an operator, this is setting up the new South Korean operator we are going to be getting in Season 3. Of course, Vigil and Dokkaebi are also from South Korea, and I did make a theory video theorizing that that new operator is going to play a part in their story. But let's get into this comic and we'll talk about it after. And trust me, you want to stay to the end because we get some information about Tower, and I would never have expected Tower to appear in the lore again. So firstly, we are in Costa Brava in Spain. Quite funny that they chose Costa Brava as a location considering the operator we got last season was Brava, so I think they done that on purpose. And I may be looking too forward into the future here, but Season 4's operator is from Portugal, which does share a border with Spain, so maybe they're setting something up with that there. And we can see the brand new operator Fenrir scoping out a building which seemingly has hostages inside. So as the page goes on, we can see that Fenrir is sort of talking to himself in his head, and he highlights the fact that there is 8 hostages in total with 2 families, and it's a contained room with 1 point of exit the whole way to the pier. And he asks himself, how do we get these hostages out safely? That is when Kaze calls his name. Fenrir in his head says, Kaze, the great leader, doesn't like me very much. Of course, we do know that Kaze is one of the biggest critics of Fenrir being part of Redhammer, and I was expecting for them two to be on a mission together to basically help him trust Fenrir that little bit more. So what he says is, Sitrep, 4 hostiles, very capable. Our dialogue with them indicates they will kill hostages if necessary. No demands other than a boat out of here. Then Fenrir in his head says, why would radicals with this level of training target civilians and make no demands? That's when we get a video call message from Redhammer leader Thermite saying, projected outcomes, team leader, and I assume the team leader here is Kaze, and he says, best case, 2 hostages dead. Worst case, all of them. Thermite replies with, unacceptable, here's what I want, but then before he could finish his sentence, the call is ended, and that is when Amaru actually steps in and says, long range comms are down, something from inside the restaurant is creating interference. Just after this happens, the captors start talking to our team through a walkie-talkie, and this is when Fenrir picks it up. He introduces himself and they order him to bring the boat. However, in his head, he's thinking of a way to delay them and buy themselves some time. He replies with saying, as I said earlier, these things take time. The captor replies with saying, no more time. If the boat isn't here in 5 minutes, we kill a hostage. And then he drops the connection. This is when Kaze orders him to call the boat and tells Buck, Amaru, Oryx, and Goyo to group up. Here he gives them the mission plan and what they're going to do. He says, the tangos move in 5. If they make it to the pier, we lose our execution window and should expect the worst. Any last minute suggestions? This is when Fenrir thinks to himself that he can't stand idle whilst lives are at stake. And in this moment, I think he's thinking about that moment which we've seen in the animation at the beginning of the season, where Deimos used the gas against his colleagues and they all ended up turning on each other and killing each other. That's when he steps up and says, I have one, let's deploy my FNAT dread mine. Kaze instantly shuts this down and says, no. Anyone else? Him and Fenrir get in a little argument and Kaze basically says, you can't do it, it's chemical warfare. But Fenrir says that this is a new iteration and it causes disorientation confusion. And it would provide an opening which we currently don't have. That's where Kaze steps in and says, and expose hostages to a chemical agent. He says, enlighten me as to how that aligns with Rainbow's MO. Fenrir responds by saying, there are no lasting harmful side effects. I tested it on myself to be sure. He begs Kaze to allow him to do it, but he still says it's a no, but opens up the question to the rest of the team. Here, Goyo, Buck, and Amaru actually side with Fenrir and agreed that they'd rather have the kids have their parents at the end of the day. Kaze reluctantly agrees to do it, but orders that there must not be any failure. We now move on to our Redhammer operators starting to infiltrate the building. Quite cool seeing some operators such as Oryx rappelling up a wall. And we see that Fenrir and Kaze make their way around the side of the building. Here, Kaze starts to drill a hole in the wall, allowing Fenrir to place one of his dread mines inside the building. The captors are now making their way to the pier to make their escape, and that is when Fenrir activates the dread mine and releases the gas. Here the gas starts to disorientate them, and that is when Buck, Oryx, Amaru, and Goyo enter the building. Here they successfully eliminate all the captors with no hostage casualties. After this is over, Fenrir thanks Kaze. However, as Kaze walks away, Fenrir remarks in his head that Kaze is still not a fan of him. But then he starts to think about the topic as to why these random people were targeted. So to get some answers, he goes and talks to some of the hostages. Here he says, I'm sorry to bother you, but this is important. Did they make any requests of you or say anything unusual? And that is when one of the hostages said, I'm sorry, they threatened our kids, I had to tell them. Fenrir says, tell them what? And the hostage says, I work at Yahata Data Services, specifically on the Rainbow account. I relay training information to agencies with potential operators for the program. I'm so sorry. What did you tell them? Fenrir said. I told them when the next training would happen, and where. a codename I think, a place called Tower. And that is the end of the comic. So at the start of this comic, it kind of just seems like Redhammer were on a standard hostage situation, and this had no effect on the overall lore. Turns out, these hostages were actually being held by people working for Deimos, and it was to target specifically one hostage who works for Yahata Data Services. Now of course, Yahata Data Services is the company which Rainbow has their financial account with, and their CEO, Masayuki Yahata, was the one assassinated using stolen nighthaven gear, and his bodyguard was Azami, which eventually led Azami seeking out Hibana, then Rainbow getting involved, which would eventually lead to the reveal of Deimos. However, one of the pieces of information that this worker gave up is the fact that there is going to be a new recruit training in a place with the codename of Tower. Of course, for those of you who don't know, Tower is a map in the game. This is set in South Korea and was launched in Operation White Noise alongside Dokkaebi and Vigil. And if you weren't aware, the Season 3 operator is confirmed to be from South Korea as well, so it does seem like we are going to see the return of Tower. Now, it is a playable map in the game, however, people aren't really a fan of the map, so maybe when they say this, it just means that it is going to appear in the lore. Or are we going to be getting a secret Tower rework next season? I mean, there is no new map or no rework scheduled on the roadmap, but could they have been purposely hiding this for this reveal from the comic, and we actually are going to be getting a Tower rework next season? But from the way it says, it seems like, honestly, maybe the Tower is going to be destroyed. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to remove it from the game. They could do that, but I have a feeling in the story, Tower is going to be destroyed. This is going to be a massive attack from Deimos, which is going to have a lot of consequences, and definitely going to play into the part of the brand new South Korean operator, who I originally thought was going to be from Nighthaven, but seemingly now has been confirmed to be a Rainbow operator, since obviously it says that they are joining the Rainbow program. But this is definitely going to play a massive part in the lore next season. I have a feeling, as Fenrir is getting this information relayed to him, the new South Korean operator is currently training at the Tower. And I have a feeling the animation we're going to get at the start of Season 3 is going to show the South Korean operator training at the Tower, and they're going to be with whatever squad leader they're a part of, and then they're going to start getting some information through from Redhammer that Deimos knows that they're training there, and all of a sudden they're going to be ambushed, or maybe there's going to be an explosion, and this new operator in training alongside that squad are going to have to fight back. Whether the Tower will be destroyed or not, we don't know, but it is really interesting that they are incorporating it into the lore, especially in a season where that map is set in South Korea. It does make a lot of sense to introduce the new South Korean operator in that way. And listen, Tower is one of the most hated maps in the game. It would be a really interesting story aspect and a big crowd pleasing moment as well, because although it will have consequences in the story, a lot of the casual viewers will see Tower get destroyed and they'll be like, hey, I hate that map. I'm glad that happened. So yeah, we're going to have to wait until the reveal of the next season to see where the story goes, but it is really interesting. So it is going to be a Rainbow operator, and they're not going to be part of Redhammer, since we did just get a Redhammer operator, and of course it's not Nighthaven. So this new op is either going to be part of wolfguard, viperstrike, or ghosteyes. And considering that Vigil is part of ghosteyes and Dokkaebi is part of viperstrike, then maybe they'll make the new South Korean operator part of wolfguard, or maybe they'll incorporate them with either Vigil or Dokkaebi. We're going to have to wait and see. Wolfguard is the squad we've not had an operator now for the longest, so it will probably be them. And as well as this comic did kind of deepen the relationship between Fenrir and Kaze. Kaze probably does trust Fenrir a lot more after this mission, however, he's probably not letting him see it, and he probably doesn't 100% trust him yet. But yeah, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this new comic, the name drop of Tower returning in the story, and of course, what our new South Korean operator is going to be. Be sure to drop a like on this video if you did enjoy, dislike it if you did not. I'm going to have more theory videos coming out in the next few days about this comic, since this is a lot of stuff here to take down, and there's probably going to be some stuff that I have missed, so yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I shall catch you later. Subscribe for more. Love you all. Peace.